Anyone playing Super Mario Bros. 3 has the potential to blow past the main title sequence and think nothing of it. The curtain rises and makes it clear that it's all just a play. The point gets even more hammered in when you find that the goal of each level is to leave the stage. Exit stage right. And again when secrets are found backstage. Then when you're done playing Mario 3, Bowser and Mario will stop being enemies and go back to being colleagues that play tennis or golf. They don't have to deal with the political climate of a kingdom constantly under threat of invasion. The Scott Pilgrim graphic novels dare to ask the question, what happens when you can't leave it all on the stage? To me, this question remains quintessential in showing why Scott Pilgrim is still relevant today. It then stands to reason that it's a bit of a shame that the more interpretations that get released, with the movie and the video games, the less important that question seemingly becomes. By the release of the video game, Scott Pilgrim is just a side-scrolling beat-em-up superhero racking up combos to take down the 7 evil X's. But that's not you. You are in your late teens and early 20s. You wouldn't describe yourself as popular, but you have your group of friends, and that will have to do. In fact, the more the time goes by, the more that you come to appreciate the friends that you do have, because you see that time and time again, the cool and pretty girls don't see you the way that you'd like. The emotion that you associate with a lot of people is one of embarrassment. For when you open your mouth, you sometimes say something awkward that either makes the person uncomfortable or offended. But you didn't mean it that way. You just weren't thinking. You meant your glowing text to a Tinder match as a compliment. But it's too late. Hence again why you don't do well when it comes to romantic pursuits. This leads you to choose the solitary act of enjoying media alone in your room, like Star Wars, anime, or Scott Pilgrim, who must defeat the 7 evil X's of the girl of his dreams to win her heart. You might prefer to watch movies alone rather than to commit to group activities like conventions, gaming clubs, or starting a band. Maybe it's all in your head and you're just being neurotic. After all, others say you're kind-hearted. You care about people and just want people to feel good being around you, not uncomfortable. People say you're sweet, but you think, well, they just don't know. You're not terrible looking, but with your self-esteem, you can't trust how you think you look anyway. What you do know for sure is that you feel a profound loneliness, and it only grows deeper the more the time goes by. Just another day, alone. At this point, all you feel is numb. Maybe you have a friend who's more charismatic, better looking than you, who tells you to just be yourself. But he couldn't possibly fathom the privilege he was either born with or molded into naturally. Now, if you're young and heard all this thinking, why are you recounting my life and what does this have to do with Scott Pilgrim? It's because I know the escapism part of your brain that stories like Scott Pilgrim appeal to. Scott is an early 20-something. Like you. He has trouble not looking back at his past mistakes with severe judgment. Like you. He even has his close group of friends that share a common interest. Again, like you. In my opinion, Scott Pilgrim acts as a power fantasy because of how similar he is to you in most ways except for one key difference. He acts on the belief that there is something that he can actively do to make his life better, even if it is just to get the girl. You might never have experienced the multiple years-long sensation of not just feeling lonely, but cut off from the rest of the world to the point where you would pretend to be anything if it only meant being someone. If you never thought of yourself as such, you might have just rolled your eyes just now and thought, what kind of Jordan B. Peterson bullshit did I just click on? Well, this ain't that. This is hopefully something that can help you see why someone looking for guidance might turn to places like this in the first place. Just clean your room and depression will disappear? Or it can help you see from the perspective of someone who is so lost in their own world, their own needs, their own depression, that they think that the only way to get a girlfriend is to become a pickup artist. How to become the ultimate Chad, so to speak. In fact, I know that you might have already noted a key component in all this that someone like the person previously mentioned may or may not miss. But it couldn't be that important, right? And Scott Pilgrim is just a cool action movie with video game references about a guy who beats the tough guys and gets the girl at the end. Right? My guess is that even though the Scott character wasn't written explicitly as someone who can't relate to people, he would have likely missed that something too. That the person mentioned already, whether he meant to or not, was not treating women like people, but rather as an other. Like you, but different enough that you feel like you have to act different to get their approval. But here's the thing. One only treats someone like this to either feed their own insecurities or to try and prove something. If you're feeling attacked right now just for having the nerve to want to be liked, I mean, no offense. You're not all one person. Each situation is different. Some of you might think that becoming friends is the way to get her to like you. Others may think that you need a cocky confidence so that she knows that you're worthy of attention. Either way, human interaction has become more about power dynamics than the actual people behind them. This need to feed insecurities also appears in the Scott Pilgrim story, even as early as the relationship between Scott and Knives Chow. Scott, instead of finding someone who he can talk to about music as an equal, uses Knives Chow as a way to be seen as someone knowledgeable in music. Someone who others gush about how cool they are, or someone simply just worth a damn. Everyone wants a friend that reminds them of how cool others see them, even if they don't feel it themselves. But let me remind you of something. If you haven't met or even been around your particular crush on a consistent basis, then you don't know each other. I know that you think she's pretty. Maybe she's blonde and skinny. Maybe she's dark with dyed hair. Maybe she's cool and has freckles. But other than the fact that she maybe treated you with basic human decency and is pretty, why don't you try talking to her and treating her like one of your guy friends first to see if you even have anything in common? If you're so convinced that the friend zone exists, try forming a relationship with someone new with the solid intention of staying in that zone. When something good happens, you celebrate together. And when something bad happens, you're there for each other. Other than that, you just enjoy each other's company. Again, like you would treat a friend that you have no sexual interest in. And if you don't have any friends, whether they be guy friends, girlfriends, or non-binary friends, that's the place to start. Just like how you probably don't want to go on a dating app until after you move out of your parents' house, you also probably shouldn't try to get a girlfriend until you break out of your social isolation and make friends with people. I know it's hard, but it takes courage to break out of the trap of your own world. But also, don't worry, because it just takes one person to begin the process of breaking out of your shell. At the same time, it's important to maintain a positive sense of self. In the Scott Pilgrim story, Scott's entire financial stability depends on Wallace. Wallace is Scott's cool gay roommate who owns everything in their apartment. And while I'm not concerned during the making of this video that someone will go from having no social interaction to becoming completely financially dependent on someone, another concern does come to my mind. Having a cool new friend can feel like a drug. You may start doing things the way that they do because you think it's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you also don't want to become the Knives Chow of the situation. Unlike a drug, people don't tend to like overly needy personalities, because they have a tendency to drain energy from people. But when you do make friends, and you play it cool, make sure that they're the type of friends who build you up, and you can make sure that you build them up too. When you do something stupid, they can tell you that you're better than that. And when they do something stupid, you can tell them the same. And if things aren't perfect forever, that's okay. Friendships have all sorts of dynamics, and they don't always last forever. At least, not in the same way. People grow up, change, move away, have children, get a new job, move on with their life. That's fine, but always try not to have your positive sense of self completely depend on other people. Scott Pilgrim's sense of self completely shattered when he grew apart from Envy Adams, his ex-girlfriend. Everyone makes mistakes, but you're going to meet a lot of cool people through your whole life because you are a cool person. And who knows, the more time that you spend around other people, the more that you can start to see things from their perspective. Make friends with people with different experiences than you. Making friends of different genders, ethnicities, and experiences than you allows you to consider issues that others deal with that you might have not have even considered. Like how maybe it's not a good feeling to have someone only become your friend with the ultimate goal of having sex with you, because that really sucks. And this is just a taste of why the concept of isolation mixes so well with the story of Scott Pilgrim. I know I said earlier that Scott acts to make his life better, but truthfully, all the evil exes in the story find him. If it were up to him, he'd continue avoiding responsibilities associated with growing up. But who else does Scott use to avoid growing up? One member of Scott's friend group that he shares his band with is Kim Pine, also known as my favorite character. While her background isn't exactly described in vivid detail in the movie, what anyone can gather, whether you've read the books or not, is that Kim is the sarcastic friend of Scott who doesn't let him get away with his habits that actively make life worse for other people around him. She calls him out when he's being selfish or lazy. And while she's not dating Scott anymore, she still takes an almost parental role in how she actively challenges him every time he does something shitty. At the start of the story, it's Kim who asks Scott about his intentions of dating a girl at least 5 years younger than himself. But this doesn't even touch on how Scott regards Kim. The movie may not have had time to go back into their backstory from the books, but if you're interested, there is an animated short to promote the movie that gives you a decent idea of how Scott sees their relationship. Scott liked her attitude and her freckles, but instead of fighting evil exes for Ramona, Scott previously imagined a scenario in which he fought boys from a rival school to be with Kim, when the truth is that Scott got possessive after he saw another kid hug her, so he beat him up. Eventually, Scott's family has to move from Northern Ontario to Toronto, and instead of having the nerve to break things off with her, she has to find out that he moved from a mutual friend. This was very clearly a shitty thing to do to someone who cares about you. But rather than consider her feelings, Scott ultimately represses the mistakes he made, creating a Nega-Scott. And in the end, the ultimate lesson that Kim helps Scott learn in the books is to own up to and live with his mistakes, allowing him and Nega-Scott to become one person again. Making friends and finding love isn't about being perfect all the time. Heck, it's not even about acting as the most handsome or charismatic person in the room. Ask a person in your life that you see as a perpetual life of the party. How close do they actually regard all the other people that they invited into their home for a party? Odds are, they're really close to a few of them, and everyone else, they have no real strong feelings for. Odds are even better that even the ones who think that they're close to him don't know the true feelings that he keeps hidden. Like how this person is insufferable, but they have a cute friend. That person thinks I look like Zac Efron, but I feel like I'm putting on an act anytime I'm around them. It can actually feel surprisingly lonely in a busy house. So if being a loved, attractive person isn't about being the most popular, what is it about? Like in the Scott Pilgrim books, it's about being genuine and learning from your mistakes. Because real apologies aren't just words. They're followed up with the action of trying your best not to make the same mistake again, whether it's with a new person or not. This just leaves Ramona Flowers, the catalyst of the events of the story and the object of Scott's affection, who he happens to meet at a party. At first glance, Ramona looks like she falls into the stereotypical manic pixie dream girl trope. A perfect, quirky girl who comes into the life of a sad boy, brings him out of his shell for no one's benefit but his own, and just as quickly disappears out of his life forever. But personally, my favorite part about Ramona Flowers is that she isn't a manic pixie dream girl at all. She has glaring flaws that she needs to work on, but desperately tries to hide them instead. The last thing she wants to do is act manic, so she hides her feelings by acting detached and constantly dyeing her hair. She leaves people hanging when things get too real. In some ways, she's just as messed up as Scott. Ramona has the power to escape into a pocket dimension known as the Subspace Highway. In the books, it's further explained that she can do this because she's inflicted with something called the glow, a powerful form of emotional warfare that traps her inside her own negative emotions, causing suspicion, jealousy, anxiety, and self-hatred. Sound relatable? But because she can't suppress her mistakes like Scott, she constantly runs from her problems and escapes into the Subspace Highway. By avoiding her problems so long, they eventually multiply, becoming the League of Evil Exes. Women in real life might not have a League of Evil Exes, but Ramona Flowers as a character can reveal a truth that you, as an isolated, awkward person, might need to hear. Women are just people. People who have just as many differences from each other as men have from each other. It might sound strange coming from an outside perspective, but when you're trapped in your own personal pit of loneliness and isolation, it helps to be reminded. Everyone is just as flawed as everyone else. Remembering this might help you not feel so alone when you're trapped in your own glow. There are men who want a relationship. There are women who want a relationship. There are men who just want something casual. There are women who just want something casual. If you find that you don't have anything in common with someone that you've been crushing on, move on. Being nice is not a personality trait. Someday, you'll meet someone with similar interests and outlooks on life that mesh with yours. But I will tell you that the transition becomes a lot easier when you hang out at the social places that are tied to something that you have an interest in. If you want to meet someone who likes the same movie as you, join a club or go to a convention. If you want a relationship with someone who makes you laugh, go to an open mic. You can't meet anyone if you don't put yourself out there. When you do put yourself out there, there's still a harsh lesson to learn. In fact, it's the harshest lesson that I had to learn. When you go online nowadays and you see the complete lack of tact that some dudes have when chatting up women or sending them unwanted pics, it can be easy to say, wow, I would never do that. Those guys are creepy. I am a nice person who would never feel entitled to another person's body. I know better. As easy as it is for a good person to know this logically, becoming trapped in your own isolation, something scary still happens. Even if you never once thought that you were owed someone else's love, attention, or body, you still find that you're developing a resentment. The feeling of being hurt by another group of people. But the reality is that this resentment is misplaced. All because you haven't come to terms with this particular harsh truth. You may already know that you're not entitled to another person's love, attention, or body, but you still need to confront the bitter truth that life itself doesn't owe you anything. Not even basic human decency from other people. The people that you want to be nice to you might not be nice to you. And the isolation that you feel is not anyone's responsibility but your own. A woman who doesn't know you at all has every right to draw from her own experience and assume that you're either a predator or a creep until proven otherwise. Just as you have the ability to work on your social awkwardness by becoming more social yourself, or not associate with mean people or bullies. Just walk away from them. You have the ability to realize that someone being mean to you probably isn't thinking about you at all. Like Ramona already showed us, everyone has their own problems that they need to work on. Maybe they feel helpless themselves, and whenever they see learned helplessness, it sets them off. Because truly confident people don't feel the need to put other people down. They lift others up. He might not have meant to, but Scott Pilgrim was hurting others by avoiding his problems. And if you have trouble being seen as cool or desirable despite desperately wanting to be, avoiding yours might lead to developing biases and unwarranted resentments towards an entire group of people that you don't know, but you think you do. Life isn't like Super Mario Bros. 3. When you get the girl, the curtain doesn't close. You navigate the relationship together, good times and bad. And sometimes you find it's not a good match. Maybe Mario is thoughtful but has low self-esteem, which is why he always has to be the hero. Maybe Peach makes delicious food but doesn't have time for a relationship because she's busy running a kingdom. Don't get me wrong, being in a relationship can be great. I'm just saying that real life is more complicated, and relationships take effort to keep. Perhaps you'll need to learn how to be a better listener, or you need to learn that you're not owed anything just because you paid for dinner. But before someone else likes you the way that you want to be liked, you need to work on liking yourself. That's true no matter who you are or what you have. Putting yourself out there, learning how to relate to other people, treating women the same as your guy friends, and becoming a better friend, you'll find that more opportunities open up to meet people, or to stay single if you choose. But believe me, working on yourself is worth it, just to have the choice. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching this video and sticking around to the end. I didn't really intend for this to become what it eventually became. Originally I was just inspired by the article, is Scott Pilgrim a sexist movie? And I couldn't help but think, like, well, no, it's not. Scott is punished for literally every single crappy thing that he does in the course of the story, and Ramona Flowers isn't a manic pixie dream girl, she's flawed in her own right. And I never really intended for this to be a how-to not be awkward or how to be somebody desirable. It's really, the whole thing just ended up becoming stuff that I wish I could have told myself in high school and in a little bit in college. But if you are looking for advice, there are better sources than this video, of course. But all I can really tell you is you're gonna be okay. If you have people in your life that you want to get to know better, don't try to force it, but just let it happen naturally. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not just about confidence, it's really about making it safe for a woman to feel okay around you. If you feel awkward asking her out, instead of just, flat out like putting her on the spot in front of all of her friends or something like that, you could instead ask her, are there any movies out right now that she wants to see? And if she says yeah, you can invite her. And if she says no, that's really not that big of a deal. Anyway, I've rambled on a little too long, but thanks for watching my video, and have a good day.